We continue now at the top of Daf Gimel Amud Beis Mesechet Shevuos. This is Shevuos Daf 3b. On the previous Amud, the Gemara asked, who is the author of our Mishnah? Again, in the Mishnah it said that you have cases which are two, which are four. For example, there are two cases of Shevuos, but then there are secondary cases, and the same thing by Yedias HaTumah, the same thing by Maris Negoyim. And so the Gemara asked on the previous Amud that according to Rabbi Yishmael, when it comes, let's say, to Shevuos, so L'Sha'avar, if it's made in the past tense, so then there is no carbon. So it cannot be that Rabbi Yishmael is the author of our Mishnah. And the Gemara similarly asked with regards to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says it's only in a lapse of awareness by Tumah that there's going to be the bringing of a carbon, but if it's a lapse of awareness in terms of Kodesh or Mikdash, then you would not bring a carbon. So again, that also seems to go against our Mishnah. Our Mishnah does not seem like either Rabbi Yishmael or Rabbi Akiva. And the Gemara in the previous Amud answered that it is like Rabbi Yishmael or Rabbi Akiva, and will simply say that there are two cases which are four, but not all of those cases are going to get the punishment of bringing the carbon. And some of them are going to be chayiv, some of them there's a liability, and some of them are going to be patur. It's going to be an exemption. But the Gemara says, how can you say that any of the cases of the four in all of these situations are going to be exempt? Hadumya de maros negoim katani, but we know one of the cases again in the Mishnah was maros negoim, two which are four, and it has to be similar to that. And over there, the person is liable on all the kinds of negoim. Mahasam kulu l'chiyuva, just like over there, all four types of negoim there's a liability for. Av hachanami kulu l'chiyuva, so too when it comes to Yedias HaTumah, so too when it comes to Shavuos, it's all liability. So again, it cannot be Rabbi Yishmael and it cannot be Rabbi Akiva. And Rashi explains, Mahasam kulu l'chiyuva sha'af ha-toldos negoim hein, even the toldos, even the secondary kinds of tzaras are considered to be tzaras. Uchashayitar mevi alehen carbon tahara, and when he becomes tahar, when he becomes pure, he does have to bring that carbon, and so therefore, just like he's liable to a carbon over there should be a liability in these cases as well. And the Gemara continues and answers, Liolam Rabbi Yishmael. Really, we'll say that our Mishnah is Rabbi Yishmael. And again, the problem according to Rabbi Yishmael is you're only chayiv, you're only liable on Shevuos, on oaths which are made lahaba in the future tense, not the past tense. But the Gemara explains, V'chi lo mechayiv Rabbi Yishmael l'sha'avar carbon. When Rabbi Yishmael says that a person is not liable for an oath that is made in the past tense, it means you're not liable to bring a carbon. Avol malchus chiyuvei mechayiv, but to have the punishment of malchus, there the person actually is liable to the punishment of Malchus. And Rashi explains, V'chi lo mechayiv Rabbi Yishmael l'sha'avar carbon ka'amar u'v'shogeg. Rabbi Yishmael was saying if you do it b'shogeg, you don't bring a carbon again if the oath is made l'sha'avar in the past tense. Avol Malchus, but let's say when it comes to the punishment of Malchus, im hazid v'hisru bo chiyuvei mechayiv. Let's say he did it on purpose and they warned him. He would be chayiv, he would be liable to get lashes. U'masnisin b'mezid kamayru Malchus. According to this answer, our Mishnah is talking where the person did it on purpose, and the punishment that's being referred to is the punishment of Malchus. And the Gemara continues and explains Uchid Rava, and this follows what Rava says. The Yamar Rava, because Rava says, Befeirush rib Torah Shevuos Sheker, Dumya de Shevuos Shav. The Torah explicitly includes Shevuos Sheker, meaning to say a false oath similar to Shevuos Shav. We'll see Rashi in a moment. Ma Shav l'sha'avar, just like a Shevuos Shav is the past tense. Av Sheker nami l'sha'avar. So too when it comes to a Shevuos Sheker, it's talking about the past tense. And Rashi explains Uchid Rava, this follows Rava, Kolomar, what we mean to say is as follows. V'im Tomer, that if you're going to ask, we just said that our Mishnah is following Rabbi Yishmael, and when we're talking about the liability, we're talking about the liability to Malchus, so you might ask, Lav Shein Bo Maisahu, Vein Loken Olav, it's a Lav Shein Bo Maisa, when you're talking about a lav that involves an oath, that is a lav without any action, and so therefore, Ein Loken Olav, there is no Malchus in such a situation. Al Zel Loken, in this case, there actually is Malchus, Kid Rava, like Rava says. Because in the third parak we're going to say that there is Malchus on Shavuos Shav. V'alfinan michilo yenake Hashem hu delo yenake avlo bezdin malkino. So we learn from the pasuk he's not innocent from Hashem, but he is going to get Malchus. Uminakin also they cleanse him uparchinan Allah, and they ask on that eshkechon Shavuos Shav. So the Gemara over there says we understand a Shavuos Shav meaning v'hu nishba l'shanos asiyadu. A Shavuos Shav would be somebody takes an oath to change something that is known. It's known that what he's saying is not true. Kagon alo ish shu isha. Let's say a person takes an oath about a man that the person is a woman. The alo evan shu zav. A person takes an oath about a stone that it's actually gold. That's a Shavuos Shav. It's a situation of an oath that's basically in vain. You're trying to say something that is clearly not true. The shav mashma davar she'eno shel klum. The word shav means it's something that's meaningless. Kimamosh che'oven b'chavli ashav, like we find in the pasuk in Yeshaya. So Shavuos sheker minolan. When it comes to a Shavuos sheker, a false oath, from where do we know? Meaning Shavuos she'eno nikar im emes im lav. What that would mean is a shvua that we can't tell whether it's true or not. And so we say over there, lashav beis pa'am, it says lashav twice. And meino inyan l'shvuas shav, if you're not going to apply it to shvuas shav, that's already been dealt with. Teneu inyan l'shvuas sheker, so we can apply it to a shvuas sheker. V'yamar Rava Hasam, and Rava says over there, hach shvuas sheker de kamar binan, me rebuya de lashav. This shvuas sheker that we are including from this word lashav, lo ribs Torah el lasheker de l'sha'avar. What the Torah is talking about is a person takes a false oath in the past tense. Kagon achalti, for example, the person says I ate, and then they really didn't eat. O lo achalti, the person says I did not eat, and they really did eat. Shemisha shenishba yotzta shvua mipiv lasheker. There, the moment the person takes the oath, he has said a false oath. Dumya de shvua shav. That's similar to a shvua shav. The person saying something clearly not true. Delahachi afka beloshen shav. That's why we're learning out shvua sheker from shvua shav, from that language. Lamemer de v'l'sha'avar kamayri, to say that we're talking about past tense. Mahu l'sha'avar nishba l'shanos asayadua, just like by a mashav rather l'sha'avar nishba l'shanos asayadua, just like by a shvua shav, it's in past tense in the sense that the person is taking an oath, changing something that's known to be true. He's saying something the opposite. Avar es hashvua mishayotza mipiv, the moment that he says that shvua, so then he's transgressed the shvua. So that's what Rava says in terms of the understanding of shvuas sheker. Shvuas sheker is past tense, just like the classic shvuas shav. And so the Gemara continues, Bishlama achalti v'lo achalti k'derav. I understand by achalti and lo achalti. Again, those are the cases of shvuas sheker in past tense. I ate, and the person really did not eat, or the person says I did not eat, and the person really did eat. So in those cases, there's going to be malchus, like Rava says. Again, that's learned out from shvuas shav. Just like by shvuas shav, we say there's malchus. So too, by these past tense shvuas sheker, there's malchus. So we understand how there could be malchus. Therefore, our Mishnah could be Rabbi Yishmael, and it's referring to malchus. And shelo ochel v'achal nami lav sheyesh bo ma'isa. We could also understand, let's say a person takes a future tense shvua that he's not going to eat, and then he goes ahead and he does eat, so that's a lav sheyesh bo ma'isa. He's doing an actual action of eating. The moment of eating is the moment of the violation, and it's a lav sheyesh bo ma'isa, and therefore there also can be malchus. But there's still one more case that we can't explain. Ela ochel v'lo achal. But what about a case where the person says he takes a shvua that I will eat, he says he will eat, and then he does not eat? So in that case, amai. So in that case, why should there be malchus? Lav she'ein bo maisu, that's a lav she'ein bo maisu. You've explained the other three cases, but in this fourth case, you don't have what Rava said, and it's not a lav she'yesh bo maisu, it's a lav she'ein bo maisa, and so therefore there shouldn't be malchus. So therefore, this answer still doesn't work because of this last scenario of ochel v'lo achal, where again he takes a shvua that he's going to eat, and then he does not follow through, and instead he does not eat. And the Gemara continues in answers. We'll have to say, kasav Rabbi Yishmael, we're going to have to say that Rabbi Yishmael holds lav she'ein bo maisa loken olav, that a lav she'ein bo maisa in fact does get malchus. So you'll have to explain our Mishnah, that our Mishnah again is following Rabbi Yishmael. It's talking about malchus, and Rabbi Yishmael holds that lav she'ein bo ma'isa loken olav. But the Gemara continues and asks, how could that be? Hachi, if so, kasha de Rabbi Yochanan ad Rabbi Yochanan. We'd have a contradiction within Rabbi Yochanan. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan, because we know that Rabbi Yochanan says halacha kestam Mishnah, that the halacha is like a stam Mishnah. Anytime you have a Mishnah that's unattributed, it's not attributed to any Tana, the halacha follows that Mishnah. Our Mishnah is a stam Mishnah, and we are now suggesting that our Mishnah holds lav she'ein bo ma'isa loken olav. So if Rabbi Yochanan says the halacha is like stam Mishnah, that would imply that Rabbi Yochanan holds that the halacha is lav she'ein bo ma'isa loken olav. However, we know that Rabbi Yochanan doesn't say that, because v'itmar, it was stated shvua sha'ochel kikor zu hayom. Let's say a person takes an oath. He says he's going to eat this loaf today. V'avar hayom v'lo achla, and then the day passes and he does not eat it. Rabbi Yochanan v'Reish Lakish da'amri tarvayu. Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, they both say eino loka. They both agree that there's no malchus. The question is why. Rabbi Yochanan amar eino loka. Rabbi Yochanan says there's no malchus mishum to have a lav she'ein bo ma'isa, because again this is a case of a lav she'ein bo ma'isa. He simply did not do anything. He did not eat. V'chol lav she'ein bo ma'isa in loken olav. And according to Rabbi Yochanan, lav she'ein bo ma'isa does not get malchus. That is the contradiction, because if our Mishnah follows Rabbi Yishmael and it's a stam Mishnah, that lav she'ein bo ma'isa loken olav, that would contradict what Rabbi Yochanan says right here. Reish Lakish says a different reason why in that case there's no malchus. He says eino loka. The reason why there's no malchus is because hasras safeki. It's a warning that is really given out of a doubt. The person really is taking an oath that he's going to eat it all day. He has all day to eat it today. So therefore, at any particular moment in time, you can't really warn him, because maybe he was going to eat it a little bit later. If a person is given a warning out of doubt, that is not called a hasra. It's not called a warning. Essentially, what Reish Lakish is saying is it's impossible to really issue a warning to this person at any point in time in that day. and therefore there's no malchus. And so in any case, we have here a contradiction. You can't possibly say that our Mishnah, which is a Stam Mishnah, holds Lav Shein Bo Maisa, gets malchus, because Rabbi Yochanan says Lav Shein Bo Maisa does not get malchus. And the Gemara continues and answers, Rabbi Yochanan Stama Acharina Ashkach. Rabbi Yochanan actually found a different Stam Mishnah. It's correct that this Stam Mishnah would seem to imply Lav Shein Bo Maisa gets malchus, but there's another Stam Mishnah that says that Lav Shein Bo Maisa does not get malchus. The Gemara says, Hi Stama, well, what is that other Stam Mishnah that you're talking about? Ilema Hi Stama de Tanan. If you're going to say it's the following Stam Mishnah. It says when it comes to the Karban Pesach, Aval HaMoser Betar, let's say somebody has a Karban Pesach that's tar and he leaves over, it's a situation of nosar. V'hashover Betame, or somebody breaks the bone of a Karban Pesach that's Tameh, Eino Lokes Arboim. So it says over there in this Mishnah that there's no Malchus Arboim in that case. Now, Bishlama Shover Betame, I understand why when a person breaks a Karban Pesach that's Tameh, there's no Malchus. Techsiv V'etzem Lo Sishbarubo. The Pasuk says you can't break the bone, and we understand that to mean Bekasher V'lo Bepasul. That's only by a carbon that's kosher, but not by a disqualified carbon. Aval hamoser betar, but if a person leaves over with a perfectly good Karban Pesach, he leaves over. Why is there no malchus over there? It says you're not allowed to leave over the meat. You're not allowed to leave it over until the morning. So why is it that there's no malchus? My time, what's the reason? Lav mishum to have a lav shein b'maisa isn't the reason because it is a lav shein b'maisa. Leaving over doesn't involve any action. V'chol lav shein b'maisa ain't lokin olav. When you have a lav shein b'maisa, there's no malchus. So you do have a stam mishnah that says lav shein b'maisa ain't lokin olav. But the Gemara continues and says, "Umimai de Rabbi Yaakovhi damar lav shein b'maisa ein lokan olav." But how do you know that that Mishnah is Rabbi Yaakov who says that it's a lav shein b'maisa and that's why there's no malchus? Maybe that's not true. Dilma Rabbi Yehuda. Maybe the Mishnah there actually follows Rabbi Yehuda. Umishum debo hakosav lite nasei achar los asei. Could be the reason is because the lav of nosar is actually a lav hanitak lasei. You have an asei right after that says that if you leave it over, v'hanosar mimenu, anything that's left over, ad boker bo'esh tisrofa, you have to burn it. So maybe it's a lav hanitak lasei is the reason why there's no malchus. And the Gemara continues, if that were the case, halav hachilaki would actually imply the opposite. That if not for the fact that it was a los aseh anitak laseh, there would be malchus by lav shein bo maisa. In other words, this Mishnah in Meseches Pesachim is not necessarily saying that lav shein bo maisa ain't lokan olav. It could be implying the exact opposite. It could be saying that there's no malchus in this particular case of nosar because it's a lav hanitak laseh. There's an aseh that you're supposed to do to correct yourself, so to speak, if you violate the los aseh. And that would actually imply that if there was no aseh, if it was not a lav hanitak laseh, there would be malchus. Because again, lav shein bo maisa, maybe it's saying does get malchus. And what is this Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbi Yehuda that we're referring to? The Tanya, as we learned in a brayso, lo sosiru mimenu ad boker v'anosru mimenu ad boker beish tisrofu. Again, by the Karban Pesach, you can't leave it over until morning, and that which is left over has to be burned. The pasuk is coming and giving an asay after the los asay. Again, what we call lav hanitak lasay, lomar she'ein lokan olav, to say that there is no malchus. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. That's what Rabbi Yehuda is saying. Again, from Rabbi Yehuda, there's an implication that if it was a lav shein bo maisa, there would be malchus. Rabbi Yaakov says, Lo min Hashem hu zeh, that's not the reason. Ela mishum dahav lav shein bo maisa. The reason is because it's a lav shein bo maisa when you leave it over. V'lav shein bo maisa in lokan olav, and a lav shein bo maisa, there is no malchus. And the point over here is you have no proof from the Mishnah in Meseches Pesachim whatsoever, because we don't know if the reason over there is because of lav shein bo maisa, or is the reason because of lav hanitak laseh. And so the Gemara continues and says, Ela rather hai stam eshkach. It's the following stam Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Shevuos shelo ochel kikar zu. Person takes a shvua that he's not going to eat this loaf. Shevuos shelo ochlena, and then he takes a shvua, I'm not going to eat it. Essentially repeating the exact same oath v'ochla, and he eats it. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Dalid Amud Aleph.